So what is this game? I'm making this video assuming that you have no clue, but it's basically the Battle Cats but adapted to Roblox. The core loop of this game is you send out units, which they call battlers, to fight enemies. These enemies defend your base, and you just try to destroy your enemy's base before they destroy yours. If you win a battle, for example, you get XP, and you use that XP to upgrade your battlers or purchase new battlers, and then you upgrade your battlers again, and yeah, the cycle repeats. Simple, right? Yeah, I guess so for like the first few hours of the game, but it gets incredibly complex later on. Currently, the game has about 4 chapters, with a 5th one being teased. There's about 30 levels into one chapter, and every 5th or every 10th level, there's a checkpoint or like a special boss that you have to go fight through. There's also a stupid ton of side missions and sub-chapters that you can grind as well if you want some spare change. There are 3 game modes to this: casual, normal, and tumore. Tumore is such a stupid name, I just keep thinking of tumor. Casual and normal is what you usually get at the start of the game, and if I recall correctly, in order to get tumore, what you had to do was that you had to press this button really hard. Then that unlocks this secret level called tumore with a whole nother set of characters. You're able to carry 8 different battlers with you, and there's a lot of strategy to this, choosing which battlers do you use, when to deploy, balancing upgrades versus new units. One thing about this game is that you can't blitz through in just a couple hours. The game is designed where you're supposed to grind and hit a brick wall around some point in the game. I remember there was this one level, I think it was around level 20, where they introduced the giant for the first time, and I got stuck there for maybe about 10 minutes. I had to grind different sub-chapters, get my XP, get my people up, and even search the wiki. Oh no, the wiki. The wiki is ridiculous. It's basically a how-to guide to the game. When you read the wiki, it seems fine and normal, especially in the easier levels, but as you go up to, especially in tumore or to the boss fights, the strategies get increasingly elaborate. You have to spawn these battlers in a certain order, upgrade your economy to a certain level. Basically, the strategy gets really important as you go on. I mentioned before that there were 4 chapters, and at the end of it, at level 30, you get to face 4 of the biggest bosses in the game. The first one is of course Doombringer, and I argue that this is the first challenge that a beginner player would meet. Practically has the Roblox bucket and of course the Van Hammer as well for defense. The second boss to look out for is the Turking, which happens at the end of the second chapter. This is more of a tanky boss. Unlike Doombringer, for example, which is more mechanically simple, this dude has fire protection, he also does fire damage as well, and especially when you're at the start of the game, that's really damaging to you. And also he also self-heals when he eats his chicken leg or whatever. I would say chapter 3 is when the upgrades, or I guess the game, starts getting more abstract with its abilities. There's also other bosses to these main bosses as well, but for the most part they're mostly pushovers if you know what you're doing. Not Insecure, however. Insecure is basically the second boss you encounter in chapter 3, assuming it was the talent show episode. This dude is so finicky. He bobs and weaves around, putting all of these magical spells onto your characters, and at this point of the game you're still running on base equipment, so unless you overwhelm him, it's really difficult to beat him. I got PTSD from those flying masks that used to kill all my characters at once. The final boss of chapter 3, which is Exec, he's more of an auxiliary or support boss. What he does is that he boosts up his teammates, and that's how they overwhelm you. Compared to the other 2, however, this one is not too hard of a challenge for me. For my experience at least, I think I beat it around the 2nd try. However, the 4th boss, which is Cesus, is absolutely insane. It's this giant humongous teapot creature, and he seems fine for the first start of the game, but when he goes on to the 2nd or 3rd wave, he starts throwing tantrums, throwing fists around the air, starts flying up and down. This is when he ramps up his damage by a lot, and that's where I think I hit a brick wall around this period. I recommend doing some parts of tumore before doing Cesus, because you really need that XP in order to boost up your characters. So when you upgrade a character to level 10, you get what is called their alter ego or supercharged variant, so like a twist or secondary character on top of your previous character. What makes this mechanic interesting though is that it's really hit or miss depending on how good the supercharged variant is. For example, using the alternate form of the sword is actually pretty trash in my opinion, and I prefer the previous one, but sometimes it gives huge upgrades. Like for example, Telemon now carries a chicken leg like Turking. The extra health, especially if you want to have him to have a damage sponge, which is what I like him as, upgrades the character significantly because it gets to stay in battle for longer. If I were to look at every nook and cranny of this game and its gameplay, it would take over an hour, but for new players, you got the gist. This is all the game has to offer. If you look at the charts for the battle bricks now, you see that it's doing rather well. It's actually reaching its major highs of 10 to 25,000 players, but most of the code for the game was actually built like years ago. Before its first launch, the game sort of looked like this. Yeah, it wasn't that good. it was coded in just a matter of hours. There's no animations there, but you can see the concept of the battle brick start to form. Then of course we have this demo that started looking more like the original, but there were many concepts like the advancement system or the progression or balancing that still wasn't figured out yet. The game finally released at September 6, 2022. That's the version that you're seeing right now, and it feels like a sort of dystopian version of what we got now in 2025. It's chunky, slightly bloated, and the game wasn't running on very good infrastructure because apparently things were falling apart in the back end and it made coding very difficult. From September 2022 to about April 2023, the game limped along like this. Updates were pulled together slowly, but at the end of this period, they only just started with Doombringer, and he was just absolutely difficult. You had to max out almost every single character and do so much grinding in order to beat him. But April 2023 set the basis for a lot that came afterwards. For instance, they had the Royal Flush update, which was this massive overhaul over the game, and right before the Royal Flush update, the game sort of looked like this. It feels odd because it feels like a close sibling to what the game is now. You can see so many of the former ideas, especially in the sound effects or in the art direction, really start to calcify around this time. But there was also this April Fool's update on April 1st, 2023, where the game just completely got destroyed by memes as an April Fool's prank, of course. All of this is actually documented in a game called the Battle Bricks Errors. He basically restored all of these games and allowed anybody to see them, which is actually a first. I don't think I've seen any Roblox developer to this degree do a sort of like recap or history of their development. From there, it was just smooth sailing. Red Heights, which is chapter 2 with Turking, that released in August 14, 2023. Machine Screen, which is chapter 3, that one released in March 23, 2024. And Across Heaven, which is the recent chapter, it released in February 14, 2025. That was when I first started hearing about the game. And so overall, how do I feel about this game? Honestly, I'm very happy with it. There's new characters you can try out, new strategies that you can implement. The wiki is honestly insane because I don't know how many people contributed to that shit, because some of these strategies are so specific that it must have came through hours of trial and error. Because the game spends so much time underground, there isn't really a strong YouTuber culture around there. Most of it actually is based on challenges, and I think this is where the game has hooked its core player base, because most of it is pretty much, oh, how do you beat this certain chapter. The game of course has a grace period where I feel like you think this is the best game ever, then it dips slightly. I'm being slightly critical of a game that's almost perfect, but you can feel a slight dip after you beat Cesus. After I beaten Cesus, I really didn't have that much of a motive to go over to Tumore, especially with the noob just telling me to stop. After you beat Cesus, you really have to do a lot of grinding, and sometimes if you want to get the special characters or the bosses for yourselves, you want to unlock them, you have to beat each level 3 different times. You know how long that takes? Pretty much, if you're speedrunning, that's about 2 to 3 hours max, but if you get stuck, that's at least 5 or even 10 hours. And there's also like 5 different or 6 different sub-chapters, and they also have 3 different versions, and they also have their 2 more versions. If you do the math, if you're going to beat normal mode, at least in the story campaign, that's 360 different levels, and that's just the base game. It gets super grindy after a while because your characters start getting so high level that the only way to progress is through the main storyline, and the side chapters don't give enough. That's the only thing I really dislike about the game, is just progression. If you don't upgrade the proper characters and you waste your XP, you have to go back and grind, because the power scaling in this game is rather unforgiving for Roblox. Of course, these are nitpicks, and pretty much everything else is just 10 out of 10 perfection. The soundtracks for this game absolutely slaps. The sound effects, or like the buttons that you click in this game, they feel crunchy, and I see some Half-Life in there. The UI, design, everything just feels so Roblox. It feels so uniquely Roblox, but so well done at the same time. You can see how much of the Roblox ethos or like the lore is incorporated here, sort of like how Forsaken did it. I'm honestly floored by how pretty the game looks, and weirdly enough, it does it without good graphics. The graphics are actually horrible. It's Roblox-like, but it looks so visually pleasing. Also, they have a stupid ton of characters. A lot of the designs, I love them. Genuinely, when you look at these characters and you see what they do and the role they play as a battler, all of it makes sense. It feels like such a cohesive product, and that's something that I don't think I can say for many other Roblox games. In terms of long-term appeal, I do think that this will have a stronger shelf life compared to other Roblox games, because practically speaking, if you want to grind this game, you probably have to take about 20 to 30 hours, and the grind is fine compared to other games games where you have to sit around and wait 20 years for something to spawn, like most Roblox games nowadays, I feel like it's going to age absurdly well, because this sort of tower defense 2.5D style, it really doesn't go away. The Battle Cats, of course, is a very old game at this point, and so much of the graphics and the progression is built upon Roblox lore, which of course also is rather old. So November 2025, from when I'm making this video now, it feels like an inflection point, because I wonder what if this is the start of something crazy. Right now it has about 15 to 25,000 players, and can it keep and maintain that player base going forward? I think it might not. I think it might drop down to maybe 10,000 or 5,000, but I really don't think it will go back down to a niche game anymore. Too many people know about it these days, and it's too good of a Roblox game to be hovering at just 200 or 400 or 500 players. Even if the game is just completely untouched tomorrow and we have no updates anymore, this already is a finished product in my view. There's just enough content in here to last a full game. Assuming that Chapter 5 does well and it piggybacks off the trend or the hype that Forsaken has given it, I do think that this game might be one of the best Roblox games to come out this year. But even if Chapter 5 flops or it never comes out, I'm perfectly happy with the game as is. And as more people just discover it naturally through like recommendations or through Forsaken or any other collaborations that comes up, this game is sticky. Once you get into its fan base, you can't really leave like that. So with all that being said and done, I'll give this game a 9 out of 10. Depending on how it performs in 2026, I'll definitely do a redux and see how the game has changed since, but I'm happy leaving it off here. You know, in Roblox, quality is of course the exception. Most Roblox games are trash and they still get players. So when you see a Roblox game do numbers and is actually quality, honestly, there's something satisfying in that. And yeah, that's about it for me. Check out this video and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.